C.S Lewis, author of the Screwtape Letters, The Four Loves. Likings and loves for the subhuman. Most of my generation were reproved as children for saying that we loved strawberries. And some people take pride in the fact that English has the two verbs love and like, while French has to get on with aimer for both. But French has a good many other languages on its side. Indeed, it very often has actual English usage on its side too. Nearly all speakers, however pedantic or however puous, talk every day about loving a food, a game, or a pursuit. And in fact, there is a continuity between our elementary likings for things and our loves for people. Since the highest does not stand without the lowest, we had better begin at the bottom, with mere likings, and since to like anything means to take some sort of pleasure in it, we must begin with pleasure. Now, it is a very old discovery that pleasures can be divided into two classes: those which would not be pleasures at all unless they were preceded by desire, and those which are pleasures in their own right and need no such preparation. An example of the first would be a drink of water. This is a pleasure if you are thirsty, and a great one if you are very thirsty. But probably no one in the world, except in obedience to thirst or to a doctor's orders, ever poured himself out a glass of water and drank it just for the fun of the thing. An example of the other class would be the unsought and unexpected pleasures of smell, the breath from a bean field or a row of sweet peas meeting you on your morning walk. You were in want of nothing, completely contented before it. The pleasure would may be very great, is an unsolicited, superadded gift. I am taking very simple instances for clarity's sake, and of course there are many complications. If you are given a coffee or a beer where you expected and would have been satisfied with water, then of course you get pleasure of the first kind, a laying of thirst, and one of the second, a nice taste at the same time. Again, an addiction may turn what was once a pleasure of the second kind into one of the first. For the temperate man, an occasional glass of wine is a treat, like the smell of the bean field. But to the alcoholic, whose palate and digestion have long been destroyed, no liquor gives any pleasure except that of relief from an unbearable craving. So far as he can still discern taste at all, he rather dislikes it, but it is better than the misery of remaining sober. Yet through all their permutations and combinations, the distinction between the two classes remains tolerably clear. We may call them need pleasures and pleasures of appreciation. The resemblance between these need pleasures and the need loves in my first chapter will occur to everyone, but there, you remember, I confessed that I had to resist a tendency to disparage the need loves, or even to say they were not loves at all. Here, for most people, there may be an opposite inclination. It would be very easy to spread ourselves in laudation of the need pleasures, and to frown upon those that are appreciative, the ones so natural, a word to conjure with, so necessary, so shielded from access by their very naturalness, the other unnecessary in opening the door to every kind of luxury and vice. If we were short of matter on this theme, we could turn on the tap by opening the works of the Stoics, and it would run till we had a bath full. But throughout this inquiry, we must be careful never to adopt prematurely a moral or evaluating attitude. The human mind is generally far more eager to praise and dispraise than to describe and define. It wants to make every distinction a distinction of value. Hence those fatal critics who can never point out the differing quality of two poets without putting them in order of preference as if they were candidates for a prize. We must do nothing of the sort about the pleasures. The reality is too complicated. We are already warned of this by the fact that the need pleasure is the state in which appreciative pleasures end up when they go bad, by addiction. For us, at any rate, the importance of the two sorts of pleasure lies in the extent to which they foreshadow characteristics in our loves, properly so called. The thirsty man who has just drunk off a tumbler of water may say, "By Jove, I wanted that." So may the alcoholic who has just had his nip. The man who passes the sweet peas in his morning walk is more likely to say, "How lovely the smell is." The connoisseur, after his first sip of the famous claret, may simply say, "This is a great wine." When need pleasures are in question, we tend to make statements about ourselves in the past tense. When appreciative pleasures are in question, we tend to make statements about the object in the present tense. It is easy to see why. Shakespeare has described the satisfaction of a tyrannous lust as something past reason hunted, and no sooner had past reason hated. But the most innocent and necessary of need pleasures have about them something of the same character, only something, of course. They are not hated once we have had them, but they are certainly die on us with extraordinary abruptness and completely. The scullery tap and the tumbler are very attractive indeed. When we come in parched from mowing the grass, 6 seconds later they are emptied of all interest. The smell of frying food is very different before and after breakfast. And if you will forgive me for citing the most extreme instance of all, have there not for most of us been moments in a strange town when the sight of the word gentleman over a door has roused a joy almost worthy of celebration in verse? Pleasures of appreciation are very different. They make us feel that something has not merely gratified our senses, in fact, but claimed our appreciation by right. The connoisseur does not merely enjoy his claret as he might enjoy warming his feet when they were cold. He feels that here is a wine that deserves his full attention. That justifies all the tradition and skill that have gone to its making in all the years of training that have made his own palate fit to judge it. There is even a glimmering of unselfishness in his attitude. He wants the wine to be preserved and kept in good condition, not entirely for his own sake. Even if he were on his deathbed and was never going to drink wine again, he would be horrified at the thought of this vintage being spilled or spoiled, even drunk by clods like myself, who can't tell a good claret from a bad. And so when the man who passes the sweet peas, he does not simply enjoy, he feels that this fragrance somehow deserves to be enjoyed. He would blame himself if he went past inattentive and undelighted. It would be a blockish and sensitive. It would be a shame that so fine a thing should have been wasted on him. He will remember the delicious moments years hence. He will be sorry when he hears that the garden past which his walk led him that day has now been swallowed by cinemas, garages, and the new bypass. Scientifically, both sorts of pleasures are no doubt relative to our organisms, but the need pleasures loudly proclaim their relativity not only to the human frame, but to its momentary condition, and outside that relation have no meaning of or interest for us at all. The objects which afford pleasures of appreciation give us the feeling, whether irrational or not, that we somehow owe it to them to savor, to attend to, and praise it. It'd be a sin to set a wine like that before Lewis, says the expert in claret. How can you walk past this garden taking no notice of the smell? We ask. But we should never feel this about a need pleasure. Never blame ourselves or others for not having been thirsty and therefore walking past a well without taking a drink of water. How the need pleasures foreshadow our need loves is obvious enough, and the latter, the beloved, is seen in relation to our own needs, just as the scullery tap is seen by the thirsty man or the glass of gin by the alcoholic. And the need love, like the need pleasure, will not last longer than the need. This does not fortunately mean that all affections which begin in need love are transitory. The need itself may be permanent or recurrent. Another kind of love may be grafted on the need love. Moral principles, conjugal, fidelity, filial piety, gratitude, and the like may preserve the relationship for a lifetime. But where need love is left unaided, we can hardly expect it not to die on us. Once the need is no more, that is why the world rings with the complaints of mothers whose grown-up children neglect them, and of forsaken mistresses whose lovers' love was pure need, which they have satisfied. Our need love for God is in a different position, because our need of Him can never end either in this world or in any other, but our awareness of it can, and then the need love dies too. The devil was sick, the devil a monk would be. There seems no reason for describing a hypocritical, the short-lived piety of those whose religion fades away once they have emerged from danger, necessity, or tribulation. Why should they not have been sincere? They were desperate and they howled for help. Who wouldn't? What appreciative pleasure foreshadows is not so quickly described. First of all, it is the starting point for our whole experience of beauty. It is impossible to draw a line below which such pleasures are sensual and above which they are aesthetic. The experiences of the expert in claret already contain elements of concentration, judgment, and disciplined perceptiveness, which are not sensual. Those of the musician still contain elements which are. There is no frontier, there is seamless continuity between the sensuous pleasure of garden smells and an enjoyment of the countryside or beauty as a whole, or even our enjoyment of the painters and poets who treat it. And as we have seen, there is in these pleasures from the very beginning a shadow or dawn of, or an invitation to disinterestedness. Of course, in one way we can be disinterested or unselfish, and far more heroically so about the need pleasures. It is a cup of water that the wounded Sidney sacrifices to the dying soldier, but that is not the sort of disinterestedness I now mean. Sidney loves his neighbor, but in the appreciative pleasures, even at their lowest, and more as they grow up into the full appreciation of beauty, we get something that we can hardly help calling love and hardly help calling disinterested towards the object itself. It is the feeling which would make a man unwilling to deface a great picture, even if he were the last man left alive and himself about to die, which makes us glad of unspoiled forests that we